Welcome to TTT Boxing in association with KO Clothing and IFL TV. Here with me I'm joined by promoter Astrid Van Der Sluys. Thanks for joining us, Astrid.
Nice to see you.
Got a fight league, Northern Sydney Fight League coming up. You also promote on the Professional Boxing Australia card, which we saw go out on Fox Sports and online recently, with Kerry Foley defending his Aussie title. So you've got next card coming up. But first of all, just wanted to introduce everyone to yourself. Up and coming promoter here in Sydney, here in New South Wales. So yeah, tell us about yourself. First of all, how did you get into boxing?
Well, I came into it pretty late in the piece. I signed up for a charity boxing night actually, and thought it would just be a one-off bit of fun, but I fell in love with the sport. And then took it to the amateur level, and before I knew it I was at nationals competing for the gold medal. I walked away with a silver and a very sore jaw, but just fell in love with the sport, and I guess I've kind of done it in reverse. I've kind of learnt to box and then learnt all the personalities and characters involved, so yeah, that's how I got here.
Excellent. And how did you find that first sort of foray into the sport? So it's something that's picking up a lot of pace here in Australia, and these corporate fight nights are and something that I've been involved in as well, and picking up a lot of pace. Is it something that you would recommend people take part in if they're curious in the sport?
Yeah, I think the corporate fight nights are a nice way to ease yourself into it, and I guess from that I've seen a handful continue on to the amateurs. It just makes it more approachable than going straight into the amateurs and fighting people who have had fights before, and being around people that are heavily embedded in it. So it's just an easy way in. But it's a really good start.
Excellent. And did you have much of an interest in the sport outside of, before you came into the corporate fighter? Did you follow anyone at all, or was it on your radar in any way?
I have this really bad habit of not really watching sport very much, but really loving playing it, doing it. I've played a whole lot of sports, but I've never really passionately followed a team. As I got a little bit older and sort of backed away from competing myself with boxing, I still wanted to be involved in the sport. So I found that being involved this way and using some of my corporate experience has been a good match of two different skill sets that I can bring this together as a promoter.
Absolutely. And how are you finding that transition into being a promoter, and obviously a lot of the work that you probably didn't see before that goes on behind the scenes, and now you're manically running around doing that? How's that transition been? Is it something you're enjoying, and where do you want to take this in the future? What's the sort of grand plans?
Yeah, it was funny, before the PBA show, one of the key guys in the industry down south, Gary from the Grange, sort of said, "You look too calm, you look far too calm," and then he's just realised I'm a swan. I float along the surface while my legs are madly going. Look, it's crazy how much is involved in terms of pulling a show together, from the legal aspects right through to catering and just making sure everyone has a really good time. And a tip for anyone considering doing it: don't get involved for the money. Do it because you're passionate about the sport, and you want to bring something to the sport as well. And
so I know you've obviously had a few cards so far. The last one was the PBA card in North Sydney. So Kerry Foley was involved. Some great fights there. Had Ben Damon at ringside with Carly Meehan, Nigel Benn, and Daniel Gill. So a really good event. Was really professionally put together, and everyone came away from that event sort of very pleased with what went on. Is that something that you think has been potentially lacking here in Australia, and so people were so positive about that? Do you think that's the best thing for the sport moving forward, to have these well-made cards with the promotion that goes alongside it?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think, look, my reasoning for taking this challenge on is to help not only professional boxers but amateur fighters get more experience. There haven't been a lot of cards put on the north of Sydney, so that's why I started with my Northern Sydney Fight League brand. That started as an amateur show. It was a fantastic success. Everyone had a great time. It really proved to myself that I could do this. The PBA show, that was just, it came together so beautifully. Everyone raved about it. I was over the moon with how it went. I think that there is an opportunity to try and do things a little bit smarter than what has been done in the past. Professional fighters really don't earn what they deserve to earn in Australia, and so my intentions are to try and work with other promoters, fighters, everyone involved to raise the profile of boxing in Australia, and hopefully bring more fans to the event. So we're not all fighting over a smaller piece of pie. There's a bigger pie to start with.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, so obviously the difficulties in bringing people together, and the fighters just obviously don't get paid as much as they should do for what they put themselves through, which is something that's changed elsewhere in the world. The UK has gone through a real rise in the last sort of 5-10 years, which has seen that situation change fairly dramatically. Is one of the biggest challenges in Australia the geography of it? It's hard to bring other fighters in from other countries. There's a limited pool within Australia as it is, and is that one of the main challenges that you face at the moment?
Look, for the PBA show, we did fly someone in from Samoa, but the costs associated with that are huge. It's geographically, it's very challenging to bring fighters in from the Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere. Sure. Pacific Islands is achievable, New Zealand's achievable. So I do think there's, to start with, a lot of opportunity to focus on Australia versus New Zealand themed cards. But geographically that is a challenge. But there's also other things, like within Sydney, we've got different quarters throughout the city, and there's a lot of different cards all on around this time of year as well. So that's another element. And in terms of the actual venues in Sydney, to have that mid-sized venue that's suitable for boxing, that can fit more than, say, 600 people in there, but less than 2,000, there's not a whole lot of venues.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed, say that starts to change, and hopefully the crowds will grow, so we only need to worry about those larger venues.